Hello, Modern Mentoring with Lani Phillips. Come on in. Looking forward to today's conversation. We're going to have a lot of fun. So I'm going to give it a couple of minutes and allow you to join. I know a lot of people are transitioning between calls. Some are probably sitting down for dinner or getting ready for bed. So I just want to give it a couple of minutes and allow you to join. But we're so excited to have our special guest tonight, Miss Beverley Wright. Hi, Shantavia. So glad you could join us. Welcome. Welcome to Modern Mentoring. Hi, Trina. So good to see you out there. I miss you. I hope you're doing well. Welcome. We're going to give it a couple of minutes and allow a few more people to join us before we jump in. You having a great day? Type in the chat for me. Would love to know what kind of day are you having. Hi, Alan. So glad you could be here. Awesome. Hi, Ashley. So glad you can join. Let's give it a couple of minutes and then we're going to get started. And ooh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited tonight. Oh, we got a special guest, someone who is so special to me that I get to share with the world. So I'm really looking forward to that. So we got a few more people joining us. All is well. Glad to hear that, Trina. We're going to give it a couple more minutes and then I'm going to jump right in. But welcome, welcome. Hello, Polly. Welcome. So glad you could be here tonight. Yes, come on in. Let's give it another minute or two. I know my side, it's a little bit of a delay, so I'll let more people join and then I will go ahead and get us started so we can move on with this conversation with this lovely lady. All right, Pooja, welcome, welcome. Glad to have you. Hi, hi, Nakia. Hi, Lindsay. Oh, it's so good to see you out there, Lindsay. Oh, it's been too long. How are you? All is well. So I love the fact that we have quite a few people joining, and I am a firm believer we don't punish those who are coming early. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in and just welcome you all to Modern Mentoring. Oh, this is one of those things that it's a passion project of mine that I've had to put quite a bit of time into to make sure that we're delivering quality content. I'm real excited to tell you today that we're actually simulcasting. We're simulcasting on YouTube as well as on Twitter, in addition to LinkedIn Live. This is the first time I've done it on 3 social platforms, so wish me luck. But I also want to make sure that for those of you joining us for the first time, I thought it was important that I just remind everyone kind of what my vision is and kind of what my goal of modern mentoring is. So my vision is designed to really scale my mentoring efforts through a digital platform where we can all benefit from shared wisdom through the power of collective voices, teaching everyone how they can flourish in corporate America. No matter what your career stage, you are on a journey to learn more, and we're here to help support you. We just want to see you be successful and accomplish all your career goals and reach beyond any limiting beliefs you might have. My goal is really to build a village of mentees and mentors that support one another, fostering a safe place so you can be vulnerable, get support. I want you to also have an opportunity to share resources and opportunities as they come up. And by establishing this digital village to connect, we can keep the engagement going in between our modern mentoring sessions, which has been the number one request. How do we keep the conversation going? And through this platform, we can all be teachers, but we can also be students. And don't we know that the best teachers are always students? So I want to make sure that for those of you out there who have not joined the Modern Mentoring Village, that you go out to LinkedIn and I want you to type in Modern Mentoring Village, and I want you to sign up and be a part of the village so that we can keep the conversation going and support one another. So I think we had a few more people join, so let's go ahead and get started with our topic for today. The topic for today is the courage to lead. And as I was thinking about what would be the perfect conversation for us to have next, it was one of those things where I was recognizing that I was starting to go through a period where we were having a lot of tough conversations with people for various reasons. Some was because people were at different points in their career where they were trying to decide do they stay or go, and they were having a difficult time there. I also had a lot of conversations with people. They were having conversations about people's performance, where they were excelling, where they needed improvement. And it was one of those conversations that I was having with people that I kept saying, you know what, right now, more than ever, we're at a point where it's time for people to really practice courage. I know a lot of people struggle when it comes down to that. And so I was talking to a good friend of mine, Miss Beverley Wright, and one of the things she's extremely passionate about is leadership and coaching leaders. And she has an extreme passion in developing courageous leaders. So we had a beautiful conversation about the importance of that. And I was like, you know what? That's what we've got to talk about on the next session of Modern Mentoring. So let me introduce you to our special guest. Now, here are just a few words people use to describe her: inspiring, empowering, wise, practical. She's a storyteller. She's committed. She's a mentor and also a courageous leader. I wanted to introduce you to my friend Beverley Wright, who is an award winning leadership coach, diversity, equity, and inclusion advisor who built high performing teams and internal businesses inside IBM. And also, let me note, she worked for IBM for 38 years. Can you believe that? 38 years. She founded her own company in 2013, the Right Choice Group, where through her coaching, clients are able to leverage return on people to increase their return on investment while achieving professional and personal goals. She is a member of the Marshall Goldsmiths MG 100 coaches. Her services include executive and leadership coaching, consulting, and diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies that helps clients achieve business and personal objectives. Ms. Wright has been the president of Dallas Dinner Table since 2002, where they focus on three things: encourage communication about race relations and the impact of ethnicity on our communities, cities, and the world. And they also educate participants about perspectives held by others related to race and culture. And lastly, they're all about empowering citizens to develop relationships with people from a variety of racial, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds. But to me, I just call Bev Wright a friend, a mentor, a coach, and there are times she's had to be a surrogate mom to me. But I am so thrilled to introduce you all to my friend. Oh, by the way, most people call it Coach Bear Wright, so why don't you do the same? Welcome.
Hello, Lani. This is wonderful. I've been looking forward to this all day.
Me too. I've been looking forward to it since you told me you were going to join. I want you to know that I am so excited to have you on here and introduce you to the world. So I know my listeners out there want to know the person behind the bio. So why don't you tell them a little bit about who you are really behind Bev Wright, Coach Bev Wright. Tell a little bit about you and how you grew up.
Well, it's interesting because I remember my mom at one point saying to me, asking me, she said, "Do you ever just sit down and think back over your life?" And at that point, I said, "No, I really don't," which was true. But it's something about getting older, you do start to, look back and look for themes. And so I was born and raised in Dallas. My folks were from East Texas, from
Mhm.
Nacogdoches, but my sister and I, it's just the two of us, and we were born and raised in Dallas. And I made a decision early on to stay in Dallas.
Mhm.
And I was blessed enough to join a company where I was able to work 38 years, as you mentioned, in lots of different roles and across, different organizations within that company, and had a wonderful career where I grew and grew and grew. But early on, I lived in the Black Village. That was before, people could live anywhere they wanted to, even if they had the money to do it. And it
Right.
was a wonderful village to grow up in. It was where every adult could stop and correct you, whether they knew your parents or not, because they know your parents would want them to do that.
Yeah.
And between my teachers and my parents, we just had a wonderful um, surrounding where we felt safe. They told us we could do and be whatever we wanted to do and be. And unlike some people, I'd never thought about it being that different. But as I tell people about it now, I went to school with the same people from first grade almost to 12th grade. We picked up another
Wow.
group in seventh grade, but then
Mhm.
we all finished, and we still are very, very connected. We talk on a regular basis. We have one of our classmates sends us a Bible verse every single morning. And
Wow.
we, for our 50th high school reunion, we went to Punta Cana and had a wonderful time. I'm still in touch with my seventh through ninth grade music teacher, who's almost 90 and writing her autobiography. And so, it's just a wonderful way to have relationships. And I think that's a theme in my life, is that relationships are really important to me.
Mhm.
And that's both business and personal relationships. And so I was always the kid, even early on, that made sure everybody held hands and crossed the street together. So I still do. I think in some ways that coaches do that as well, and work on connection and, authenticity and those kinds of things. So that just, and I had amazing parents. My sister and I, had examples of people that didn't talk about their religion. They lived it, because we saw them take care of any and everybody that needed help. And so that's where I got that from, was really just watching what my parents did.
What a blessing to be able to
Absolutely.
grow up in that type of environment and still be in touch with them today. And I still remember through numerous conversations that you and I have had where you would be telling me about different opportunities that y'all still get together and even have a few you played bit whist with. And y'all are just really close friends. That's just an awesome gift that you got from your
Yeah.
parents to be able to grow up in the village like that. That's
And
cool.
it's different when you're surrounded by people that have known you since first grade. Like this past Friday, my best friend, who's the first person I met the first day of first grade, we had a play, we had a play date at my house because we hadn't done it in a long time. And so I said, we're going to order food in. We're not going to have an agenda. We're just going to catch up. And it was wonderful. It was absolutely
Oh,
wonderful. But, we've been together since first grade.
that's so awesome. I don't know anybody from the first grade. Uh, but you know what? Let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
I would love to hear, how do you think about leadership?
It's interesting. Leadership to me is such an important role. First thing I'd have to tell you is that I didn't grow up with, corporate examples in my family.
Mhm.
And so when I joined IBM, it was all new to me. That's what I used to tell our new hire classes, is that if I can be successful here, everybody can be successful, because I was so green when I came, didn't know how to dress, didn't know, just all
Right.
kinds of things. But I was young and thought that I could do whatever I wanted to do. And so when I really started noticing, first of all, the big thing for me is that I was a follower first. And I
Yeah.
knew what was important to me as being, a follower, someone that had a manager that, gave me direction and that kind of thing. And IBM was a great place at that time for you to have. Managers were just very hands-on and very much about developing. And so that was part of our culture, and I benefited from that. So the first person that I had that really convinced me that I could be a leader, because it didn't even look attractive to me initially. I thought this looks like it's not fun. You're kind of caught in the middle between the people that work for you and the people you work for. And so when Stacy first asked me about, I really think you should consider leadership, I said the same thing to her that I just said to you. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
And so she gave me such a generous gift by saying, look, I can teach you everything about leadership because I made every mistake you can make. I can teach you all the things not to do. And when you think about that, that is such a generous gift. And she said about doing that, she invested a lot of time in me, where if she had two meetings to go to, she'd send me to one. But she also spent personal time, and I got to understand the role of leadership. What I actually think about it, though, is that sometimes people are really excited about the privilege of leadership. There's a lot of ego many
Right.
times about saying, I'm a leader, I'm a manager, whatever that is. But they sometimes forget about the responsibility part, which to me might be the bigger part.
Yes.
And so that's when I decided that one, that corporations can do good, that some people don't think so. I don't think corporations are necessarily evil. I think the people, you have to have a leader that creates a culture where they can use their resources for profit and for purpose. And purpose
Mhm.
can be about being good community citizens. And that was what
Mhm.
I experienced in IBM. They were always encouraged that, and certainly invested in me in that way as well. So that gave me a great example of leadership. So that was the first thing with Stacy and her dedication, because she convinced me that I could do it
Mhm.
my way. Because I said to her, I said, I'm not sure IBM really wants me as a leader because I don't do company speak. I said, I
Mhm.
can't say things that I don't believe. And so I'm not sure that's a good fit for me. And she gave me a couple of pieces of advice that I use to this day. She said, you have a strong sense of right and wrong. You need to learn to pick your battles or you wear yourself out from the inside. And then
Mm.
the other
Hold
thing,
on. Say that one more time.
I know.
So that's gonna help somebody out there. Say
I
that
know.
one
Yeah,
more
she
time.
did. She said, you have a strong sense of right and wrong. You need to learn to pick your battles or you'll wear yourself out from the inside. And boy, was that ever true for me.
So
And
true.
so I had to learn to do that. The other thing she told me is that you can learn from every single person you meet. You either learn what to do or what not to do. Look for the lesson.
That's right.
And those two things have stood me in good stead my entire career. Now, I will tell you that there is a book by Marion Wright Edelman called Lanterns, and it's about
Mhm.
lighting the path for others. She gave me two pieces of advice that I added to Stacy's, and one was be a good ancestor, right? So you
Yeah.
think about that. So that one has been a guide for me for a long time now. But the other one she gave me was she said, don't waste your time with low value, what did she say? No, low value, high people that need a lot of attention, right? She said, don't waste your time with them, And so that one took me a while to really learn, but I've got that one now. And
You
so
got that one now?
it's low value, high maintenance people. That's what the quote is. And
Uh-huh.
so that one took me, I had to learn that lesson a few times, but I've got that one now.
Why was that an important lesson?
Well, I think sometimes that we, especially as we grow and get older, that we care more about or tend to give more attention to people. We want everybody to like us, right?
Mm.
And that's especially true for women in particular. Lots of research says that is the high likability factor. And so when you run into people, you want them to like you, right? And what you find is that there are people that you really shouldn't care whether they like you or not, right?
Mm.
Because they don't provide any value to you, and why would you care? And so
Right.
that's something that I even in some of the businesses I started inside of IBM. I would say to people, don't give all your energy to the naysayers. Find the early adopter people and spend
Right.
more time with them because the naysayers may or may not get on board. And if they don't, that's a choice they make. But if you build
True.
something that is the business really needs, they'll either get on the train or they'll be run over by it. So just don't give them a lot of energy.
I love that. I wish we all could have a Stacy was her name, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I wish we all could have had a Stacy early in our career because boy was she invaluable to you as you were on early on your corporate journey.
Yeah.
So we have some people out in the audience that has responsibility for managing people, but we
Mhm.
also have people in the audience that don't manage people. So why don't you share your perspective on leadership as it relates to both sides?
Yeah. Well, I contrast between
There you
personal authority, personal leadership, and positional leadership, right? And I think that people get so carried away with positional leadership. But if you think
go.
about it, when you only have positional leadership, somebody else can take that away from you. You don't control whether you're promoted or you get a new title. But personal leadership is completely upon, to your control. And so I had an early experience with that. When I first joined IBM, there was a woman that kind of became an informal mentor to me. And
Mhm.
what I noticed about her is that all these men that were running these big businesses, they didn't make a move without her say so. She wasn't a manager. The entire time I knew her, she never managed people. I don't know if she ever did. But
Mhm.
when I really understood her personal power was I was sitting in a room one day in a meeting, and the execs were talking about some topic, and they decided they needed to meet again. And so they
Right.
said, when should we schedule the next meeting? Well, what I knew about her is that she was, if for those people that are from Texas, she was a real Texas person with the big hair and that kind of thing. And she grew up in one of our wealthier neighborhoods.
Sure.
And so every Thursday at
Yeah.
4 o'clock, she got her hair done
Mhm.
every Thursday at 4 o'clock
Mhm.
for the entire time I knew her. So we're
Mhm.
sitting in this meeting, and these men are sitting around a table, and I'm in the room with them, and they're trying to come up with when they're going to meet next. And one of them said, "Well, why don't we meet Thursday at 4 o'clock?" And some other man said, "Isn't that when?" And I'm not going to call her name, but isn't that when she gets her hair done? And they changed the meeting. I was like, "Oh my goodness."
Oh wow.
I want to be her. Right?
That's some power right there,
And
huh?
I'm telling you, they did not make a move without her. She was an
Wow.
advisor. She had memorized all their serial numbers. I mean, and so she became my mentor, and my goal became to become her. And
Mm.
so, luckily, I had several years where I was able to kind of follow her around, and she really kind of took on a mentor role for me. And then through a reorganization, we were separated, and we were both very emotional about it. And I ended up moving to another organization where we were completely separated. But here's what I learned about that. If I had never been separated from her, I don't think I ever would have become her with my
Mm.
influence because I had to forge my own path in the new organization, and I couldn't lean on her. I couldn't let her be my crutch. And so that really was a really good thing for me. And we stayed in touch, that kind of thing. But it was just an amazing thing to see her positional power. I mean, her personal power, because she never had a title as manager or whatever, but everybody paid attention to her. So that's what I would say to people is that influencing without authority is even more powerful than having positional power because somebody else controls that.
And that's a powerful statement because I have found as I've grown in my career, at any given time, even though I have responsibility for people, there are certain settings I'm in where I have no power.
Yeah.
So you have to rely on your personal power,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And I really have just learned the importance of really trying to hone in on that impact and influence that naturally happens as a part of that personal power. And I think you just gave us a great example of that. Now, our topic today is the courage to lead. So let's establish a foundation in regards to how you are defining courage.
Well, I see courage in a word is kind of bravery, and it's being willing to be uncomfortable, standing alone when you have to, just to make a decision that you think needs to be made. And I think it's kind of even going ahead when you know that there may be some negative impact to you, perhaps from a reputation standpoint. I think that's what we think about most often in
Mhm.
business settings is, but one of the things that I noticed that from a development standpoint, IBM created a playbook for developing executives at one point. And it was one of
Mhm.
the best pieces that I saw in them develop. And when I
Yeah.
looked at the playbook, one of the things that they wanted them to experience was failure, and how do you recover from it. And so that tells you that failure is not always fatal. Sometimes it, as long as you're failing forward, that can be a good thing. And you have to be brave in order to take some of those, and have the courage to take some things, some risk and some paths that other people may not think are the smartest way to go. But if you look at the way innovation has happened in just about any industry or segment, it always happens because someone had the courage to try something different. And so in that way, we wouldn't be, we'd still be in horses and buggies if someone wasn't courageous enough to say that we could fly, right?
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, oh my goodness. I just did an interview last week, man. And I have a number of positions open, and I've just been interviewing people like crazy. And I asked one person I interviewed, share with me a little bit about where you failed at something and what did you learn?
Yeah.
Do you know they struggled to share a story?
Huh.
And I was really saddened by that. And I was like, now, are you struggling to share a story because you only want to focus on the successes?
Yeah.
And I think I caught him a little off guard.
Mhm.
But, I have learned that, and I'm sure you feel the same way. I feel like for me, I have grown the most through the failures.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you
Absolutely.
don't grow when you go from success to success to success. You grow through the difficult times, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. There was, I remember when I had a family member that passed, and one of my friends gave me a book, and the name of the book was "The Rocks Are What You Climb On," right? And
Hmm.
so, and I think many that failure is that way, is that it teaches you how strong you are, because until you're tested, you really haven't kind of figured out what your bench strength is. But
Oh,
and I can remember, a couple of times in my career where where it really, really taught me how strong I was. And
mm,
after that, I was like, bring it on. I know I can get through whatever it is. And the next level was, where you really get to the next mountain and you're at the top, right? Because you've learned how to be resilient. And so, one of my coach friends said something is that because most of us are fear based. And so that's why we don't, try things and we're afraid to fail. And one of the things she said is that it's okay for you to let fear ride in the car. You just can't let it drive.
all right.
And
Did y'all catch that? Fear can ride in the car, but we just can't let it drive. So we
exactly. It can
don't
sit
let
in
it
the
hold
back
us
seat.
back.
Exactly. Can't have a steering wheel. It can sit in the back seat or the passenger seat. But can't let it under the wheel.
I love that one. I'm gonna have to borrow that one for sure. So you will hear that one again. I promise you. So let's share with people. I know you referred to a leadership package. So
Mhm.
why don't you share with the audience a little bit about the leadership package?
That really is everything that comes with leadership. And I'll give you an example. Recently, I had a client, and they were doing a 360, taking their leadership team through this 360. And in the assessment, everybody is confidential. The feedback you get is confidential, except for your manager, your direct manager. You know exactly what they said. So
So,
one day I get an email from her, and she says, "Now, is everybody's feedback confidential?" And I said, "Well, yeah, except yours, right?" I said, "Because if you're the manager, they'll know you said it." And she just did this deep sigh, and she's like, "That's going to make it a little more challenging." And I knew that what the problem was with this employee, right? That was part of the C-suite leadership team. And so I said to her, I said, "Well, let's see if we can figure out a way for you to think about it differently." I said, "Because the 360 is about development, So this is not performance management, and you shouldn't try to put the two together because then employees won't trust you, right? They won't trust that you really do want to develop them because you're now letting it bleed over into appraisals and all that other stuff. And I said, so through the lens of development, can you give this person actionable feedback? Remember, I say that all the time, not
You
about
do.
your feelings and, those kind of things, your hunches, because people can't do anything with that, right?
No.
It needs to be actionable feedback. And what I say to my clients is, if you can't give them actionable feedback, don't talk. Don't say anything because it's a waste of time. You've just
Mm-hmm.
frustrated them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the important things. Straight talk, being able to clearly communicate not just the vision, but where they fit. Right? People want to know, where does my piece fit? It's like a jigsaw puzzle, and I used to use that when I was an adjunct professor at SMU for 3 years. But the course they asked me to develop on inclusive leadership. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually used this puzzle where I didn't tell them, I just threw the puzzle pieces everywhere and didn't give them directions or anything and watched what they did with it. And
Mm-hmm.
people wanted to know where their piece fit, right? And so it's the
Wow.
same thing. So to me, the leadership package, to some degree, you need to not only create the vision and make sure that but make sure they know where their piece fits, because that, and there's when we used, it used to be the Hay Group, which is now Corn Ferry, but they said that what employees want most is clarity, standards, and rewards. That
That's
those are
right.
the things that make that they want to know clarity of role. What do you expect me to do? Where do I play?
Right.
And then what are the standards that we will be judged by? And then how do we get recognition?
Mm.
And so
Yes.
that's all part of that leadership package. And of course, it's the encouraging the heart piece and all of that kind of thing, the inspiration piece.
Oh, I would agree. And I think you had a lot in there when you think about this leadership package.
Yeah.
And there's so many things I could pull out of it. But I want to double click on one aspect of it. And that is, as a leader, when you're with your people, you talked about the straight talk.
Hmm.
And if you don't have any actionable feedback, then you should just sit and listen.
Hmm.
My question to you is, how do you want to give everyone a framework in terms of how to think about actionable feedback?
Yeah, it's certainly not about just feelings and hunches. I think that's
Yes.
yeah, I had a client today, and that was what she was upset about. What she said to me is, she had her appraisal, and it went really well, but they have this piece where it's about competencies that come with each role, and that her manager um, gave her lower marks. She said they weren't horrible, but lower marks in some things. And when she asked for examples, the examples she gave her were from 5 years ago. And
Mm.
so she's like, how do I change her perception if she can't? And I said, well, the first thing she needs to learn, and I actually know her manager, she's someone I know well. And I said, the first thing is that if you're going to give somebody feedback about where they improve, have examples that are relevant to the period that they're being appraised in. I mean, don't go
Right.
back 5 years, 2 years.
And
That's just
don't
not
you know
good.
people who try to do that? They go back way back here. I'm like, this is
Exactly.
what we're in today. Oh,
Exactly. And so, so I think that it's not hard for you. Give them real examples. And sometimes it's about coaching moments, right? So that
mm,
in the moment when you observe something that they could use feedback on, give it to them then. I had one of the folks that worked for me. He said he wanted to get on my calendar. I said, fine. So he picked the time frame. He said he scheduled 30 minutes on my calendar. We get together. And 15 minutes in, I have no idea why we're meeting. And I'm like, okay, you got 15 more minutes. Are you going to ask me for something? Is it something you need from me? Do you need me to do something? So I said to him, do you mind if I stop the meeting and change this into a coaching meeting?
mm,
And I gave him the feedback I just gave you. I said, now you chose how much time to schedule. I didn't give you any parameters. Now we've been talking for 15 of the 30 minutes you schedule, and I have no idea why we're meeting. So what I'd like for you to do is to let's stop this, reschedule the meeting, and then come with a plan. It was a completely different experience the next time. He did wonderful. And so I think that, that's part of leadership. If you're really about growing stronger teams and individuals, you need to be able to help them figure out what they need to do. You're a guide, right?
Right. You
And
are a
so
guy.
and so that needs to be an active part of what you do, is giving them feedback. And the same thing is true sometimes when you're having to give them feedback. I've given appraisals where it wasn't. I remember one of the folks said when I gave him his appraisal, he said, "Bev, could I talk you into making it one higher?" And I said, "Well, it's not about what you talked me into; it's what you earned." I said,
Ooh,
"But here's what we're going to do. Now
right.
that we know where you are, we need to meet more often. We need to have more conversations. I'm going to be in the boat with you more because now I see you need that." And so the
Mm,
next round, we didn't have that problem because it was still a partnership. It's just, okay, you aren't bad. You've had lots of great appraisals. It just wasn't this one. Right.
right. That clarity. That clarity everyone deserves, right?
Yep.
To
And
understand where
and
they
here's
are.
the thing. The reason that I'm so big on straight talk is because I got some once that was so helpful for me. I thought I was going to be promoted like any minute. So every time my manager called me, I thought, oh, this is it. They're going to give me my promotion. This is when I was early in my career in administration. And so before I'd ever been a manager. And so I was actually meeting with my second line manager, who was an ex-Marine. And he
Yes.
had such a dry sense of humor. So I'm meeting with him. And finally, after he didn't seem like he was going to bring it up, I broached it and said, well, I'm really thinking that I'm ready for a promotion. And he
Yes.
didn't miss a beat. He said, you've done a good job, but we've got somebody that's done a better job. And we're going to promote them next. And he said, and here's what I want you to work on these two things. And I
Mhm.
was crushed in the moment. I mean, honestly, I was crushed. It was all I could do to get out without, tearing up. But here's the thing. So there are two things you need to know about this situation. One, I can't promote myself, so I need to pay attention to what he's telling me, right? And then
Yes.
two is that when I really thought about it, I thought, you know what? I probably haven't been given 100% to this job because I thought I was leaving it any minute and I was going to be promoted to this other job. And
Right,
so
right.
it took me another year to get that promotion. By that time, he had gone to another part of the company, but he's the first person I called and said,
Wow.
I wanted to thank you for what you told me. I want you to know I got the promotion and I appreciated you telling me the truth.
Mm. Isn't that
And so,
awesome?
and when I retired, he had long since retired, and I called him when I retired many, many, many years later, and thanked him again because that experience helped me be a better leader.
Well, I don't know how many people would be able to say that when they've received tough feedback, that they could go back to the person and thank them for the feedback and the
Oh,
learning they got from it. But I
yeah.
bet there's someone out there, and I see a lot of my friends out there. Hello, everyone, for joining.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people out there who probably could go back. They could think of like 5 people that they
Yeah.
need to go back and thank right now. So I want everybody at least thank one person
Yeah.
in the next week that gave you some tough feedback that helped you. I want you to go
Mhm.
back and thank them because there's not enough people out there today delivering straight talk.
Yeah. And
And
it's
I
not even
cannot go
sometimes.
ahead.
Sometimes I was going to say that sometimes it's not even just because it can be a positive too. Where one of the
Sure.
reasons that I left IBM when I did is because one of my longtime clients, he was my manager at one point. We're good friends. I was his coach for 10 years. And we were talking one day, and he said to me just out of the blue, he said, Bev, he said, I just feel like we're holding you back. You're supposed to be on a bigger stage.
Mm.
And I had never thought about it. I loved what I did. I loved the people I worked. I was like, really? You want me to leave? And he said, we love you. He said, but I just feel like we're holding you back. And to
Mm.
this day, in fact, I made a mental note about last week that I need to call him and tell
Thank
him all the things that I'm doing now. And he planted the seed for me to look bigger, right, than I had been thinking of looking for myself. So it can go, but that's still straight talk too, but it's
straight
because you have
up.
a bigger vision for you, much like Stacy did for me, than I had for myself at the time.
And what a gift to give someone you're working with.
Absolutely.
To be able to see them in a better way than they even possibly see themselves.
Yeah.
Like to be told that you're supposed to be on a bigger stage or you could be doing so much more. I mean, that is awesome. And the fact that he felt like they were holding you back and to say that, I mean, that's a beautiful thing. All right. So I want to touch on something that we've talked about giving feedback, right?
Mhm.
And that straight talk. But I don't know that enough leaders ask for feedback. Do you have a point of view on that?
Well, some of them do. And even when they don't ask for it, they sometimes get it anyway. And so what I work with them on, number one, I do work with them on asking for it because
Yeah,
I think, leaders are learners or should be.
should be.
Because if you aren't always learning, it's easy for you to become irrelevant, right? You don't stay abreast. And it's also um, one of those things where people can see the things that you're doing that are not helpful to your growth or your effectiveness as a leader. And if no one
Right.
tells you, you just keep going down that path.
Yeah.
That's not good either. And so I really do talk to them about, one of the things I learned to do even with my managers is ask them when my name comes up, what do people say about me? Because they'd be in meetings that I'm not in. And I wanted to know, tell me what people say about me. And that was really, really helpful to
Mm,
me. And asking them, even when, so I would just say that straight talk all the way around is a really good thing. And so it's a gift because if
mm.
people, the other thing I always say is that people that don't care about you will not tell you the truth. They will watch you make the same mistake over and over again for their own entertainment.
Yes.
And so
For
that'll
their
be the
own
water cooler
entertainment.
conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You said a whole word right there.
Oh,
I'm gonna just sit in silence on that one and shake my head.
it is
Hmm.
so funny.
Because it's true. I mean, a lot of people only want to hear the good things, but
Yeah,
people who really care about you tell you the truth.
absolutely. And
They tell
it's
you the
coming
truth.
from a place that is from a sincere place of wanting you to be the best version of yourself. And I think that, at least for me, that was really helpful for me building relationships with the execs that I worked with, both now and um, when I was in IBM, is that for whatever reason, I was very comfortable saying to them, here's what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Mm,
And they knew I wasn't going to tell anybody but them. And I'd
right.
also go back when I saw the change and say, it's working, keep doing more of that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so to this day, there are people that I remember having a conversation with one exec where he kept saying people trusted him and I knew nobody did. And so after him saying it over and over and over, it's just the two of us. I said, do you really, really want to know, what people think about you? And he said, yes. And I told him, I said, you haven't been here long enough. People don't really know you. And I gave him some information where he knew that I was telling him the truth. And he said, you have more courage than most people I've ever met. And what
Mm.
you told me bothers me. And I fix things that bother me. And he
Isn't that
did.
awesome? That is so cool. So let's shift gears because I don't want us to run out of time because I know we got a few
I
more
know.
things we want to
I
share
know.
with the people, but you and I could talk all day. So,
Absolutely.
right now, what's top of mind for a lot of people in this world where we're having to learn to manage through this pandemic and we're all virtual in a lot of cases or a hybrid version of it. People are trying to figure out how to create a thriving culture. Do you have a perspective on how they might think about doing that?
Yeah, it has to be intentional, just like any other business goal you have. If you don't pay attention to it, it becomes a default culture.
Mm,
And that is to me, we spend more time at work than anywhere else. So why would we want that to be miserable, right?
mm,
We need to be really intentional about creating a place that people don't dread coming to. I had a friend that many years ago, when I was still in administration, he, for whatever reason, developed this dread about work to the point that they picked him up and had to by ambulance from work
mm.
because he would start getting anxiety on Sunday night. And I said to him, no job is worth this. You need to leave.
Done.
But he had a secure job. He had been at IBM forever. And I literally talked him into leaving because it was hurting his health. And do you know that he went on, he was in an administrative role I always knew he could have been a comedian and made his living as a comedian. But he ended up, because of his skill, he ended up being a great salesperson and was
Wow.
salesperson of the year. And once he left that job, because it wasn't good for him mentally. And so that you don't want to work in a toxic, even if your numbers are good, if you look forward with dread to getting up every day, that is a big sign that you need to do something else. Yeah,
Look
I
at what
see
Trina
somebody
wrote.
saying, yeah, I agree, Trina, completely.
Peace is
I agree.
priceless. Thank you,
Yes, that
Trina.
that is very, very true. And so, I was on a Zoom call yesterday with a group that I'm part of, and they were asking us about, what gets you up in the morning. And I
Right.
told them, I said, I wake up like a jack in the box every morning. And I did when I was at IBM because I loved what I did. To me, it was not work.
Yeah.
And I said, and so everybody wants that. And so the culture, here's what I'd say about culture: figure out with your team what culture you want. There's a company that I support. He's the youngest CEO that I work with. And he's just gotten back literally this week from a 4-month sabbatical where he got married. He's the
Oh.
youngest one. And we're actually talking Friday because he sent me a text late this afternoon and said, I just got back your podcast, the one I did with Jane. He said it was the first thing I listened to, and I want to catch up.
Oh.
And so, what I love about his company is that it is their culture. One of their main things is gratitude.
Mm,
Every single person I interact with, it's almost like it's hard to even it's describe to people, and they're venture capitalists.
right.
And so they're using venture capital to create a world where they addressing climate change and world hunger. And I'm just so inspired because every person embodies that culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
because he's paid attention to. In fact, because he's younger, on their website they had, no, I can't even say the word, so no ASS, on their company website, right? Because they
Okay.
don't tolerate that.
Mm,
And so it's being intentional. We even in your teams, we had a code of conduct that we created as a team. And one of the things I actually pulled it up today because I still have
okay.
the last one that we came up with, and
Okay.
it was that we wanted to protect our team brand. So all of
There you
us were
go.
responsible for that. We
Yes.
wanted to keep confidential things that were supposed, because we had a lot of confidential information that we dealt with. But our last one, so it was like respect for teammates,
Right.
honesty is the best policy, work as one team, display a positive attitude, recognize others' efforts and achievement, understand one another, and through embracing diversity, protect our team brand, lend a helping hand, and maintain confidentiality. And the last one was have fun. And we had someone on our team that was assigned to make sure we had fun.
Oh, that is so cool. And what did you call that? Your
And we
code of
called it our code of conduct. It was kind of
code of
like
conduct.
operate. Yeah, and when we had new people join the team, we would share with them this code of conduct. This is the way we run our team.
That is so awesome. I'm sure that's going to help someone out there as well. So I want to tell my guests, hi, Dr. Angela, I see you out there. Elliot, I see you. Hi, Brian, I see you out there. If you all have any questions, please type it in the chat. I'm going to ask Bev just a couple more questions, and I want to make sure that your questions get answered as well. I hope you all are learning as much as I am just by talking to her. One of the questions I wanted to ask you as well is, a lot of leaders don't have a lot of the right people around them. So what's
Mhm.
your perspective on that?
Well, I think you know that again, it's about intention. You creating what you think you need,
Yeah.
and so I'm really careful about group speak. And I remember I had someone in our one of my remote locations. And every time I talked to him and asked him something, I always felt like he told me what he thought I wanted to hear. And
Mm-hmm.
so one day I said to him, I told him that. I said, I think you tell me what you think I want to hear. I said, but I already know what I think, right? I said, so when I ask you for your opinion, I really want your brain to engage and for you to
Yes.
tell me what you think? I said, because I would hear, different opinions. And so then he told me different things. He gave me some information that I really needed to have that he would not have given me otherwise. And it was
Wow.
something that I needed to act on. And so I think you really don't want to have people that are just a lot of yes people, because that you don't get diversity of thought that way. You also don't get the best solutions that way. It's not a healthy way to run a business.
Oh, I could not agree more. Hi, Sonal. Sonal had a question out here. Three key things you need for a great leader, to be a great leader.
Well, I think it is one is just being human. I think, sometimes we get into this when I talked about ego is, and I was thinking about this because I heard somebody introducing themselves and they're always so clear about saying, oh, I'm an executive such and such. And I was like, so what? Right? It's like,
Mhm,
I think
mhm.
sometimes we get caught up in titles and that kind of thing. So just being human and recognize that everybody is doing most people are doing their best. You may have some people that don't want to do that, but then you get rid of those people. Uh, and so I think you have to have, and it's the number one thing though is self-awareness. You know, you have to be somebody that really tries to get to know yourself. I have a friend, Grace, and Grace said, I sat down and had a meeting with myself.
Uh-huh. I have plenty of those. A
And
meeting
so,
with myself.
I think we need to do that. And then it's, do you have a passion for whatever it is you're doing? Because that covers a lot of territory. If you really enjoy it and you see that there's a purpose in what you're doing, people
Mhm.
want to be well used. And so they don't want to feel like they're wasting their time for something that doesn't matter. So self-awareness, have a passion for what you're doing, and then focus on the people that are going to help you do it. Develop your team. I would say those are the top three.
Awesome. I hope that helped you, Sonal. Thanks for your question. If we have any more questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. So, Bev, for those that are early on their leadership journey, do you have a book you would recommend to them?
Well, the book that I thought was good for me when I first started was The Leadership Challenge by Kouzes and Posner, because
Mhm,
they
that's one of
had
my
the, everything. They had the commitments, and some of it was military based, but I really liked what it gave a foundation for me. And so the things that they talked about were to model the way, to inspire a shared vision. And this was the
favorites.
courage part, to challenge the process. You can build a different path if you need to, and then enable others to act. And this was my favorite, and encourage the heart.
Yes.
Because I really feel like sometimes, and I hear this a lot from people about their leaders, they don't know if they care about them as people,
Mm,
right? And so I think that that's really important, that people feel seen as humans that
right.
have all the things that humans come with. I always say that people don't come to work in pieces.
They don't.
The whole person shows up whether you're ready to deal with them or not. And sometimes the things you see happening in the workplace didn't originate in the workplace. They may have been something else that's going on with them. And so I think that's what's really, but that book was really pivotal for me because it gave me a framework that I could build on with my experiences over the rest of my career.
Sure. Frank, hi, Frank. Frank wanted to know what was the title of the book.
It's the Leadership Challenge, and I think they're in like their third or fourth edition.
Yes,
So
Posner and Kouzes.
yeah, yeah,
Yes, yes. Did you get that, Frank? I hope so.
yeah. I see he typed it, the Leadership Challenge. That's the name.
Okay, cool. Yes. So Bev, I'm looking at the time. I
I
want to keep
know.
going,
I know.
but I feel like we covered a lot here. I think the most important thing, though, is I think we did have like some key messages we wanted to leave with everybody. So, why don't I give you a couple of minutes to summarize some of the key messages you want them all to walk away with so we make sure that we leave it with them here in the closing?
Okay. Well, I think that we talked about the leadership package and what that entails, and then the buck stops here. There was 2 days ago on the news they had a tragic story about a child that died in one of the splash parks here in the area, in one of the suburbs, And I was
Mhm.
impressed when we talk about courage. The current mayor came on and said, we are responsible for this child's death and we will fix it. The buck stops with me. Right.
Mm,
And so he said, and this will never happen again. He knows he's going to be sued. And he said, I accept that responsibility.
that's
Right.
courage.
Because we failed. And so I think that's important. And then straight talk is a gift. Right. That really is the thing, that it is a gift both ways, the giving and the receiving of it.
That's right.
And then here's something we didn't talk about in specific, but to praise in public and share areas for improvement in private. I never respect leaders that do what I call public,
Shaming.
shaming. Exactly. I think
That
that's
shaming in public
yeah.
is
I,
terrible.
I just think that's horrible, and it's not effective. It doesn't inspire people to do better. It inspires them to go undercover, right?
It does. It does.
And then that leaders create the work culture, right, and the climate. And so if they don't do that, then you get a culture by default.
That's true. You do.
And
All
then
right.
what's the
And
next
tip
one?
6.
Is surround yourself with people that will challenge you. I'm always better, and I used to say that to my team, is that they needed to manage me better, because I know I can have strong opinions, but I like the debate because we get better solutions. I want them to challenge me, and so I needed to surround myself, and they did that quite well. Right, they got the hang of that.
They do that with me quite well too.
Yeah, so that was really good. And then the last one was to get to know your team as individuals. Don't have every conversation be about work. What are their hobbies? What's their, are they married? Do they have kids? What is it that would make their lives, their work lives, richer? I would say to the team, I said, if I'm doing something to make your life, your work harder, assume I don't know it and come and tell me, because that's not my intention.
Right.
So just know that I don't know that, because, like I say, we spend too much time here for it to be a struggle, any more any more of a struggle
Any
than what's
more of a
already.
struggle.
Here's what we know, is that there is pressure in the system that we can't do anything about,
Right.
and so we need to control the part that we can.
Right. We did have a question here, and I want to make sure we get to it. And it came from Pooja. Hi, Pooja. Any tips on improving personal leadership skills?
I think it's really, one is you can get a mentor, somebody that you admire, who you think has personal leadership skills. For me, it was my mentor, the only one I had at IBM, and he was really pivotal in teaching me the the unwritten rules, and that the rules aren't made for everybody. That's another important lesson that I learned, because I was very rule bound coming out of administration, and once I moved to sales, they didn't seem to have any rules over there. So it was like
They got to
going
do
to look
whatever
for
they
a whole
needed to do.
yeah, where money is created, there's a lot fewer rules, and but he taught me that. So I would say find a mentor, and you can have more than one. And I remember going to one of our execs and asking her. She was really good at doing presentations, and I asked her what her secret was, and she said, even when I look like I'm doing impromptu, nothing I do is impromptu. I've said it out loud in the car. And so I would just say to keep learning and surround yourself with people that are good examples for you.
That's a good one. I hope that helped you, Pooja. I'm looking at the time, Bev, from the bottom of my heart, and for everyone who's going to watch this, thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, sharing those stories. I think we all walked away. Frank said, great tips. I would love to get those on a poster. You know what, Frank? I will make sure that I go back and I try to capture all her little nuggets, and I will at least put it in one document and I'll send it to you. So we can all have those tips. So I'll make sure I do that as a follow up for sure. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. First of all, for just being the woman and friend you are to me. Just so you all know, Bev and I used to get together every single month. We would have dinner together and we would just sit and talk for hours. And I would sit at her feet and take in all the wisdom. And then she would ask me tough questions and we'd work through different things. And since I've been away, we haven't talked as often, but every time we get together, it's like we just pick up where we left off and we keep on going. So I cannot tell you how much I have enjoyed just having this conversation with you because I get to benefit from it as much as I want, and I love it.
It's fun for me. It's fun for me too, share just being able to spend some time with you and the other folks that joined us here. So thank you so much.
Yes, and I want to
I
thank
love this.
all of our guests for joining. I've seen some friends out there. LaShonda's out there. Did you see that?
Oh
I
yeah, I
saw
did see
Marita
her. Hey
out
lady.
there. Amy, I see Amy.
Wow.
Shantavia. I already talked about Trina, Sonal, and Frank. I
Yeah.
think I've just seen so many people out there. I'm trying to get the chat.
Well,
Tremel
I
is
heard you
out
mention
there.
Elliot, so he needed to be here, right?
Elliot is there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mentioned Brian earlier.
Yeah.
Shawnee, hi Shawnee. Of course, Miss Ashley. So there's a lot of people. I think Dr. Angela, hello, wonderful. So there's a lot of people that we know out there. So I just want to encourage everyone. Let's keep this conversation going. Bev's going to join our Modern Mentoring Village. So if you have any questions, I'll make sure she checks out there so she can respond as well. I did want to make sure before I end that I read you all something that Beth actually shared with me. That is it called an essay, a poem? What
No,
would
it's
you
a
call
poem.
it?
It's a
It's
poem,
a
but
poem. You would
yeah,
call it a poem. Okay, so
yeah.
it's called Promise Yourself by Christian D. Larson. So I'm going to end on this, and as I read it and say goodbye, please follow us on Mentoring Village, and I look forward to seeing you at the next Modern Mentoring session. But I'm going to close with this. Here's the poem. Promise yourself. Promise yourself to be strong, that nothing can disturb your peace of mind, to take health, happiness, and prosperity to every person you meet, to make all your friends feel that there is something in them, to look at the sunny side of everything and make your optimism come true, to think only the best, to work only for the best, and to expect only the best. To be as enthusiastic about the success of others as you are about your own, to forget the mistakes of the past and press on to the greater achievements of the future, to wear a cheerful countenance at all times and give every living creature you meet a smile, to give so much time to the improvement of yourself that you have no time to criticize others, to be too large for worry, too noble for anger, too strong for fear, and too happy to permit the presence of trouble. To think well of yourself and to proclaim this fact to the world, not in loud words, but great deeds. To live in faith that the whole world is on your side, so long as you are true to the best that is in you. So,
Yeah,
Bev, thank you. I'm so grateful to
thank
you.
you.
What a wonderful poem called
I'm
Promise
so
Yourself.
so proud of you. I am just this
Oh,
has been a treat for me. Thank you.
thank you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you all so much for joining. I look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully in a couple of weeks with our next Modern Mentoring session. And for those of you, no matter where you are in the world, just continue to take care and we'll connect soon. All right. Bye, everyone. All right.